Shalom, shalom. So we basically put our foot down. God's just put his foot down and being like, Saul is not going to be king anymore. He's not going to be the sovereign of Israel anymore. I'm done with that. I made a mistake. It's went to his head. We're done with that. And it says Samuel mourned for him. Yeah. And Samuel did not see Saul again until the day of his death, for Samuel mourned for Saul. I've mourned for him. I feel bad for him too. If it's, like Buddy he was chosen, hand-picked by Elohim himself. Hand-picked. Hand-picked. And you've seen him, it's like, I don't know. You just see, you see the potential in people, and then you just see them fail miserably, and you're like, oh man, that really sucks. I hate it. I hate it. And they just don't want to come out of it. Or, they have muffed up so bad that nobody's unredeemable, right? That's what Jesus is for. Jesus has saved us all from all of it, unless we continue in our sin. Read Hebrews 10. But yeah, anyway, sad times. That's where we're at. Sad times. We're going to read 16 to 20. Chapter 16. And Yahuwah said to Samuel, how long are you going to mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Yishai, or Jesse, the Bethlehemite, for I have seen among him for I have seen among his sons a sovereign for myself. And Samuel said, how would I go? When Saul hears it, he shall kill me. And Yahuwah said, take a heifer with you, and say, I have come to slaughter to Yahuwah. And you shall invite Jesse to the slaughtering. And let me show you what to do. And you shall anoint for me the one I say to you. And Samuel did what Yahuwah said, and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming, and said, do you come in peace? And he said, in peace. I have come to slaughter to Yahuwah. Set yourselves apart, and you shall come with me to the slaughtering. And he set Jesse and his sons apart, and invited them to the slaughtering. And it's probably pretty scary if when the man of Elohim, when the priest is coming to your town, you're like, oh, bro. It's one of two reasons, and if it's not a good one, it's gonna be bad. And it came to be, when they came, that he saw Eliab, and thought, the anointed of Yahuwah is indeed before him. But Yahuwah said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance, or at the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For not as man sees, for man looks at the eyes, but Yahuwah looks at the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab, and made him pass before Samuel, and he said, neither has Yahuwah chosen this one. Next Jesse made Shammah pass, and he said, neither has Yahuwah chosen this one. And Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, and Samuel said to Jesse, Yahuwah has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, are these all the young men? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, and see, he is tending the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we do not turn around till he comes here. And he sent and brought him in, and he was ruddy, with bright eyes, and handsome. And Yahuwah said, arise, anoint him, for this is the one. And Samuel took the horn of oil, and anointed him in the midst of his brothers, and the Spirit of Yahuwah came upon David from that day and onwards. And Samuel arose and went to Ramah, and the Spirit of Yahuwah turned aside from Saul, and an evil spirit from Yahuwah troubled him. And the servants of Saul said to him, look now, an evil spirit from Elohim is troubling you. Please, let our master command your servants who are before you to seek out a man who is a skilled player of the lyre. And it shall be that when the evil spirit from Elohim is upon you, that he shall play with his hand, and you shall be well. And Saul said to the servants, "Please get me a man that plays well, and bring him to me." And one of the servants answered and said, "Look, I have sent for the son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, who knows how to play, a brave one, and a man of battle, and skilled in words, and a handsome man, and Yahuwah is with him." So Saul sent messengers to Jesse, and said, "Send me your son David, who is with your sheep." And Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread, and a skin of wine, and a young goat, and sent them by his son David and Saul. And David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor-bearer. And Saul therefore sent to Jesse, saying, "Please let David stand before me, for he has found favor in my eyes." And it came to be, whenever the evil spirit from Elohim was upon Saul, that David would take a lyre and play it with his hand. Then Saul would become refreshed and well, and the evil spirit would leave him. And the Philistines had gathered their armies for battle, and came together at Succoth, which belongs to Yehudah, and encamped between Succoth and Ezekah, and Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered and encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in battle array to meet the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. Then a champion came out from the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath, from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. So a cubit is, again, from our elbow to our fingertips, right? So that if anybody doesn't know, from your wrist to your elbow is about 12 inches, then your hand somewhere around 8 inches itself, or well, 6 to 8 inches, something like that. So it's, we're going to call it 18 just for fun. 18 times 6, 60. That'd be 120. Sorry, it's a little early. 114. 108. So 108. And he's over 9 feet tall, I'm pretty sure. He's pretty close to 10. Or he's over 8 feet. I don't know, something like that. He's a big dude. He's a big stinking dude. Boop-a-da-boo. There we go. Verse 5. And a bronze helmet was on his head, and he was armed with a scaled armor, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze, and a bronze shin guard on his legs, and a bronze spear between his shoulders. And the wood of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels, and his shield bearer went before him. And he stood and shouted to the armies of Israel, and said to them, "Why have you come out to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me, and shall strike me, then we shall be your servants. But if I overcome him, and shall strike him, then you shall be our servants, and serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I shall reproach the armies of Israel. Give me a man, and let us fight together." And Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, and they were broken down in great fear. Now David was the son of that Ephraimite, Ephrathite in Bethlehem in Yehudah, whose name was Jesse. And he had 8 sons, and in the days of Saul the man was old among men. And the 3 oldest sons of Jesse went, and they had gone to follow Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, his second Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And for 40 days the Philistines drew near morning and evening, and took his stand. Then Jesse said to his son David, "Please take to your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp. And then these 10 cheeses to the commander of the 1,000, and see how your brothers are, and bring back news of them." For Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and they left the sheep with the herdsmen, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out to the fight, and they shouted for the battle. And Israel and the Philistines drew up in battle array, army against army. And David left his supplies in the hand of the keeper of the supplies, and ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. And he was speaking with them, and saw the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the army to the Philistines. And he spoke according to the same words, and David heard. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, ran from him, and were in great fear. And the men of Israel said, Have you seen this man who has come up? For he has come up to reproach Israel. And it shall be that the man who strikes him, the sovereign is going to enrich him with great riches, and give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption in Israel. And David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, What shall be done for the man who strikes this Philistine, and shall take away reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should reproach the armies of the living Elohim? And the people answered him according to his word, saying, That this is what is done for the man who strikes him. And Eliab his oldest brother heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's displeasure burned against David, and he said, Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. And David said, Now what have I done? Was it not but a word? And he turned around from him toward another, and said the same word. And these people answered him a word like the first word. And when the words which David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant is going, and shall fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, You are not able to go against the Philistines to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he a man of battle from his youth. Then David said to Saul, Your servant has been tending sheep for his father, and when a lion or bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it, and rescued it from its mouth. And when it rose against me, I took hold of it by its beard, and struck it and killed it. Your servant has stricken both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, seeing he has reproached the armies of the living Elohim. This is a long chapter. Let me get a sip. And David said, Yahuwah, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he does deliver me from the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said to David, Go, and Yahuwah be with you. And Saul dressed David with the garments, and he put a bronze helmet on his head, and put a coat of armor on him. And David girded his sword over his garments, and began to go, but he had not tried them. Then David said to Saul, I am not able to go with these, for I have not tried them. So David took them off, and he took his staff in his hand, and chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the wadi, and put them in a shepherd's bag in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came and began drawing near to David, and the man who bore the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he despised him, for he was a youth, and ruddy, and of handsome appearance. And the Philistine said to David, Am I a dog, that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his mighty ones. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I give your flesh to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the fields. But David said to the Philistine, You come to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you with the name of Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of the army of Israel, whom you have reproached. This day Yahuwah shall deliver you into my hand, and I shall strike you and take your head from you, and give Give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines today to the birds of the heavens and the wild beasts of the earth, so that all the earth know that Elohim is for Israel. And all the assembly know that Yahuwah does not save with sword and spear, for the battle belongs to Yahuwah, and he shall give you into our hands. And it came to be, when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the ground. Thus David was stronger than the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him, and there was no sword in the hand of David. Then David ran and stood over the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of his sheath, and killed him, and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and Yehudah arose and shouted, and pursued the Philistines as far as the entrance of the valley, and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell along the way to Shearim, even as far as Gath and Ekron. Then the children of Israel turned back from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their camps. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his weapon in his tent. And when Saul saw David going out against the Philistines, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is the youth? And Abner said, As your being lives, O sovereign, I do not know. And the sovereign said, Ask whose son this young man is. And when David returned from the striking of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistines in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son are you, young man? And David said, The son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite. All right, another sip. Whew. Chapter 18. And it came to be, when he had ended speaking to Saul, that the being of Jonathan was knit to the being of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own being. And Saul took him that day, and would not let him return to his father's house any more. And Jonathan and David made a covenant, because he loved him as his own being. And Jonathan took off the robe that was on him, and gave it to David, and his garments, even unto his sword, and to his bow, and his girdle. And David went out whenever Saul sent him, and he acted wisely. And Saul set him over the men of battle, and it was right in the eyes of all the people, and also in the eyes of Saul's servants. And it came to be that as they came in, as David was returning from striking the Philistines, that the women came out from all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet Saul the sovereign, with tambourines, with joy, and with musical instruments. And the women sang as they danced, and said, Saul struck his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, and this matter was evil in his eyes. And he said to David, They have given 10,000s, and to me they have given thousands. So what more for him, except the rain? And from that day on, Saul eyed David. And it came to be on the next day that an evil spirit from Elohim came upon Saul, and he prophesied inside the house, while David was playing the lyre with his hand as usual, and the spear was in the hand of Saul. Then Saul hurled the spear, for he said, Let me strike David, even to the wall. But twice David withdrew from his presence. And Saul was afraid of David, because Yahuwah was with him. But from Saul he had turned away. Saul therefore removed him from his presence, and made him his commander over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. And David was acting wisely in all his ways, and Yahuwah was with him. And Saul saw that he was acting very wisely, and was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David, and he went out and came in before them. And Saul said to David, See, my older daughter Merab, I give her to you as a wife. Only be brave for me, and fight the battles of Yahweh. For Saul thought, let not my hand be against him, but let the hand of the Philistines be against him. And David said to Saul, who am I, and what is my life of my father's clan in Israel, that I should be son-in-law to the sovereign? And it came to be, at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given to Adriel the Meholite as a wife. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the matter was right in his eyes. Saul said, let me give her to him, and let her be a snare to him, and the hand of the Philistines against him. So Saul said to David a second time, become my son-in-law today. And Saul commanded his servants, speak to David gently, and say, see, the sovereign has delighted in you, and all his servants have loved you, and now be the sovereign's son-in-law. And the servants of Saul spoke these words in the hearing of David, and David said, does it seem to you a small matter to be a sovereign son-in-law, seeing I am a poor man and lightly esteemed? And the servants of Saul told him, saying, David has spoken according to these words. And Saul said, say to David, the sovereign has no delight in any payment for the bride, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the sovereign's enemies. But Saul intended to have David fall by the hand of the Philistines. And his servants declared these words to David, and it pleased David well to become the sovereign's son-in-law, and the days had not expired. And David arose and went, he and his men, and struck 200 men of the Philistines. And David brought their foreskins, and they brought them before the sovereign to become the sovereign's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, as wife. And Shaul saw and knew that Yahweh was with David, and Michal, daughter of Saul, did love him. So then Saul was still more afraid of David, and Saul came to be an enemy of David all the days. And the princes of the Philistines went out to fight, and it came to be, whenever they went out, that David acted more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name came to be very precious. And Saul spoke to Jonathan his son, and to his servants, and to David, and to all his servants, to put David to death. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. And Jonathan declared to David, saying, my father Saul seeks to put you to death. And now please be on your guard until morning, and dwell in concealment and hide. And I myself shall go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are, and speak with my father and you, and shall speak with my father about you, and shall see, and shall let you know. And Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father, and said to him, let not the sovereign sin against his servant, against David, because he has not sinned against you, because his works have been very good toward you. For he took his life in his hands and struck the Philistines, and Yahweh wrought a great deliverance for all Israel. You saw it and rejoiced. Why then do you sin against innocent blood, to put David to death without cause? And Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan, and Saul swore, as Yahweh lives, he does not die. Jonathan then called David, and Jonathan told him all these words. So Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as before. And there was fighting again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines, and struck them a great smiting, and they fled before him. And an evil spirit from Yahweh came upon Saul, as he sat in his house with his spear in his hand, and David was playing the lyre in his hand. And Saul sought to strike the spear through David and into the wall, but he slipped away from the presence of Saul, so he struck the spear into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. And Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch him and to put him to death in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, informed him, saying, if you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you are put to death. So Michal let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. And Michal took the household idol and laid it in the bed, and put a covering of goat's hair on his head, and covered it with the garment. I just want to say, Why do you have a household idol? What are you doing? And when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, he is sick. And Saul sent the messengers back to see David, saying, bring him up to me in the bed to put him to death. And the messengers came in and saw the household idol on the bed with a cover of goat's hair for his head. Then Saul said to Michal, why have you deceived me like this and sent my enemy away so that he escaped? And Michal answered Saul, he said to me, let me go. Why should I put you to death? Now David fled and escaped, and went to Samuel at Ramah, and told him all that Saul had done to him. And he and Samuel went and dwelt in Naioth. And it was reported to Saul, saying, see, David is in Naioth in Ramah. And Saul sent messengers to take David, and they saw the assembly of the prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing as leader over them. And the spirit of Elohim came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. And when Saul was told, he sent other messengers, and they prophesied likewise. So Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they prophesied also. Then he himself went to Ramah, and came to the great well that is at Seku. And he asked and said, where are Samuel and David? And one said, there in Naioth in Ramah. So he went there to Ramoth in Ramah, and the spirit of Elohim was upon him too. And he went on and prophesied until he came to Naioth in Ramah. And he also stripped off his garments and prophesied before Samuel, and lay down naked all the day and all the night. Therefore they say, is Saul also among the prophets? And David fled from Naioth to Ramah, and went and said to Jonathan, what have I done? What is my crookedness, and what is my sin before your father, that he seeks my life? And Jonathan said to him, far be it, you are not going to die. See, my father does no big matter nor small matter without disclosing it to me. And why should my father conceal this matter from me? It is not so. But David swore again, and said, your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes. And he says, do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as Yahuwah lives, and as your being lives, there is but a step between me and death. And Jonathan said to David, whatever your desire is, I do it for you. And David said to Jonathan, see, tomorrow is the new moon, and I shall certainly sit with the sovereign to eat. But let me go, and I shall conceal myself in the field until the third day at evening. And if your father misses me at all, then you shall say, David earnestly asked my permission to run over to Bethlehem, his city, for yearly slaughtering is made there for all the clan. If he says thus, it is well, your servant is safe. But if it is very displeasing, then know that he has resolved to do evil. And you shall show loving commitment to your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of Yahuwah with you. And if there is crookedness in me, put me to death yourself, for why should you bring me to your father? And Jonathan said, far be it from you, for if I knew with certainty that my father has resolved that evil is to come upon you, then would I not make it known to you? And David said to Jonathan, who would make it known to me? Or what if your father answers you sharply? And Jonathan said to David, come, let us go out in the field. And they both went out into the field. And Jonathan said to David, Yahuwah Elohim of Israel be witness, when I search out my father sometime tomorrow or the third day, and see if there's good towards David, and I do not send to you or disclose it to you, so that Yahuwah do so, and much more to you, Jonathan. And if it pleases my father to do you evil, then I shall disclose it to you and send you away, and you shall go in peace, and Yahuwah be with you as he has been with my father. I need to wet my whistle. Oh, goodness. I went down the wrong pipe. Woo. Okay, I think we're at 14. Yeah, 14. But show me the loving commitment of Yahuwah, not only while I still live, so that I do not die, and do not cut off your loving commitment from my house forever. No, not when Yahuwah has cut off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. And Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, Yahuwah shall require it at the hand of the enemies of David. And Jonathan again made David swear, because he loved him, for he loved him as he loved his own being. So Jonathan said to him, Tomorrow is a new moon, and you shall be missed, because your seat shall be empty. And on the third day, go down quickly, and you shall come into the place where you concealed yourself on the day of the deed, and shall remain by the stone Etzel. And let me shoot 3 arrows to the side of it as though shooting at a target. And see, I shall send the youth, saying, Go find the arrows. If I expressly say to the youth, Look, the arrows are on the side of you, get them and come, then as Yahuwah lives, there is safety for you and no concern. But if I say to the youth, Look, the arrows are behind you, go your way, for Yahuwah has sent you away. And as the word which you and I have spoken, as the word which you and I have spoken of, see, Yahuwah is between you and me forever. And David concealed himself in the field, and when the new moon came, the sovereign sat down by the food to eat. And the sovereign sat on his seat, as at other times, on a seat by the wall, with Jonathan standing and Abner sitting by Saul's side, but the place of David was empty. But Saul spoke not a word that day, for he thought, It is an accident. He is not clean, for he has not been cleansed. And it came to be the next day, the second day of the new moon, that David's place was empty. And Saul said to Jonathan his son, Why has the son of Jesse not come to eat, either yesterday or today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked my permission to go to Bethlehem. And he said, Please let me go, for our clan has a slaughtering in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. And now, if I have found favor in your eyes, please let me get away and see my brothers. That is why he has not come to the sovereign's table. Then the displeasure of Saul burned against Jonathan, and he said to him, You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, you shall not be established, you and your reign. And now, send and bring him to me, for he is a son of death. And Jonathan answered Saul his father, and said to him, Why should he be put to death? What has he done? At that, Saul hurled a spear at him to smite him. Then Jonathan knew that his father had resolved to put David to death. And Jonathan rose up from the table in the heat of displeasure, and ate no food the second day of the new moon, for he was grieved for David, because his father put him to shame. And it came to be in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a small youth was with him. And he said to the youth, Now run, find the arrows which I shoot. And the youth ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. And when the youth came to the place where the arrow was which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called out after the youth and said, Is not the arrow beyond you? And Jonathan shouted after the youth, Make haste, hurry. Do not stand still. And Jonathan's youth picked up the arrow and came to his master. But the youth knew not a speck. Only Jonathan and David knew of the matter. And Jonathan gave his weapons to the youth, and said to him, Go, take them to the city. And as soon as the youth had gone, David rose up from the south side, and fell on his face to the ground, and bowed down 3 times. And they kissed one another, and they wept together, but David more so. And Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of Yahuwah, seeing Yahuwah is between you and me, and between your seed and my seed forever. Then he arose and left, and Jonathan went into the city. Well, this is the fall of Saul and the rise of David. And the bigger they are, the harder they fall. Well, as always, may Yahuwah bless you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Thus they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I myself shall bless them. Shalom, shalom.